From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. Come for one, face us all. Free Mahmoud, free them all. Come for one, face us all. Come for one, face us all. Come for one, face us all. Free Mahmoud, free them all. Come for one, face us all. We will not comply. Gaza, we are by your side. We will not comply. Gaza, we are by your side. We will not comply. We will not comply. We will not comply. We will not comply. Gaza, we got your back. Gaza, we got your back. Palestine, we got your back. Palestine, we got your back. Trans people, we got your back. Trans people. Trans people. Trans people. Students. 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 Immigrants. 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 Workers. 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 Muslims. Palestinians. Gaza. Trans people. Immigrants. Students. 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 Organizing, I'm going to say organizing dynamics, you say, can be really challenging. Organizing dynamics. Organizing dynamics. It's true. Organizing dynamics. Like really, really challenging. Like really, really challenging. Like really, really challenging. No, like really, really challenging. I'm going to say, but it is still worth it, you say, because organizing gets the goods. But it is still worth it. 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 I'm going to say, our elders raised us right. We will never, ever abandon the fight. Our elders raised us right. We will never, ever abandon the fight. Our elders raised us right. We will never, ever. Our elders raised us right. Our elders raised us right. Our elders raised us right. We will never, ever abandon the fight. 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 Please join me in welcoming Elena Stein, JVP's Director of Organizing Strategy.
Can we get some love and appreciation for the one and only Morgan Bassicus? Morgan, thank you for everything you are and everything you give. And can we get some love and appreciation for all the artists and cultural workers and artist organizers who make our movements irresistible, as Tony Cade Bambara would say. And on that note, I want to make sure, if you haven't seen, the amazing Emily Simons has been illustrating every single one of these plenaries. You see Emily over there? You might not have noticed, but it's incredible. She's creating visual language for anything that happens here. So if you're excited by visuals or you want to remember what happened, go watch her work over there, or come up afterwards, or just go look at the beautiful artwork, the beautiful graphic recording after these sessions. Thank you, Emily. Hi, everyone. If we haven't met, my name is Elena Stein. I'm the Director of Grassroots Organizing Strategy, and I'm truly so incredibly grateful to be here together. This plenary is called Build to Fight: how do we build durable people power at a scale big enough to create a more just future? And the question here, in part one, we're gonna be in conversation with three of our favorite movement leaders who lead organizations across the US social movement left. And in part two of the conversation, then Gemma, our wonderful director of grassroots organizing, is gonna talk on the same topic but with JVP chapter leaders about the same question in their context. So the question of this moment is how? How on earth are we going to stop this relentless, not just ongoing, escalating horror show of a genocide? And how are we gonna do that while we're stemming the tide of rising fascism here at home? And the honest truth is, I don't know. And I've been looking around and I don't think that anybody has a blueprint. But what I do know is that we will find out. Because the only thing we are as a collective, more than horrified, more than enraged, more than grieving, more than exhausted, more than overwhelmed, is determined. And while we don't know the exact answers, we do know a lot. Our movements know a lot. And here is one of the many things that we are crystal clear on. We have to build a mass movement. We have to be as many people as possible. We have to be many, many more people than we are now. And that means that we have to organize people who are not already with us. Power is the capacity to make things happen. Our opponents have power in the form of money, weapons, access to media, ability to set policy. The only way we ever have and ever will have a shot at defeating them is with people power. So the question of this plenary is, how do we build that people power? How do we build to fight so we're even in the position to fight to win? We do it through organizing. What is organizing? Let's just define it so that we know what we're talking about. Organizing is the work of bringing people together who have common goals, interests, values, to engage in a strategy to overcome some form of injustice. And let's just review what the component parts of our organizing are so that we're really collectivizing our knowledge together. We start in organizing by building a base, or base building, and we'll use that term a lot in this plenary. This is everything like reaching out to new people, inviting them to come to something, one-to-one conversations, chapter meetings, caucusing, enticing events and actions that make people want to be there and bring them in deeper. Once we build a base, well, actually, and let me say, in this work in particular, good base building means that we work to build thriving, multi-generational, multiracial, cross-class, anti-Zionist Jewish communities that allow those who are leaving their Jewish communities to find a new place of belonging. Right? Because so much of what's happening under the surface really is about belonging. And that makes it our job to be radically welcoming. Even if it feels hard, it's our job to be radically welcoming. Once we build a base, we develop the leadership of that base by investing in people's political analysis, like what is Zionism? Organizing skills, how do you plan an action? The ability to strategize, how are we gonna get that university to divest? And the ability to work together. Ella Baker, the consummate civil rights organizer, said, "I have always thought that what is needed is the development of people who are interested not in being leaders as much as in developing leadership in others." That's our job, right? And then once we develop leadership, we all take action through campaigns and mobilizations that achieve concrete change in concert with the wider movement for Palestinian liberation and with intersecting struggles for justice. And if we do that right, that in turn builds the base and brings people in. Organizing requires a strategy to bring in new people. And I've got some hard news for us. This is different than having the right political analysis. Ooh, I know, it's so hard. Somebody's gonna have to tell Twitter. We can have as good a political line as we wanna have, but if we don't have a base of people to actually wield power, we can't enact our politics. There is a difference between having politics and enacting politics, and that difference is organizing. So if we want to enact our politics, if we want to bring about a world in which people get their basic needs met and can survive and thrive, we have to be in a constant practice of learning how to come together across countless forms of difference and uniting around a shared strategy, and then carrying out that strategy in formation with each other, building the masses as we go. In effect, we're trying to embody the image that is the motif for this convening. The flock of birds or the starling murmuration. And this motif was gifted to us by Adrienne Brown, and the amazing designer Lena designed this and designed most everything. If you came in to this convention center and you were struck by a giant banner hanging that said Free Palestine, or like, wow, these visuals, can you give it up for Lena? Making our movements irresistible. So the starling murmuration moves as a collective. It doesn't move in a straight line. It relies on the leadership of countless birds to move this way or that way. And it also relies on the trust of countless other birds to just move with them. And the birds aren't spending their time going at each other. There's no subtweet there. They're all moving together. Easy, right? Oh man, if only we were birds. The folly of being human. Man, we humans are messy. Dang, we got a lot of baggage. And this is hard stuff. You know, we're raised in a society that is full of oppressive conditions, and they show up in all of our movement spaces. And also, even those of us who are totally convinced that we need to be moving as a collective, we're convinced of this in theory, we were raised in a very most of us were raised in a very individualistic society. And so actually carrying this out is incredibly difficult for us. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? No, everybody's having like an easy breezy time out there. No conflict in your group. Everybody, like, you call it the masses and they all move together and it's just chill, right? The groan of resonance. No, organizing is hard stuff. That's the truth of it. And we kind of need to inoculate ourselves against that, because otherwise it's gonna knock our breath away at some point and we might just wanna back out, right? It's hard. Organizing requires discipline and practice. It requires so much grace for each other and constant generosity and direct communication and commitment to tending to power differentials and doing repair work. It requires figuring out how to weave together our many different gifts and interests and skills and finding ways to make our differences our greatest strength. Make it generative. Organizing requires deep humility and a commitment to constant personal and collective transformation. The late Grace Lee Boggs said, "In order to transform the world, we must transform ourselves." And it requires making our movement work actually feel good, at least a lot of the time. The amazing JVP member leader Esther Farmer says, people come for the politics, they stay because of how they're made to feel. And organizing can feel amazing, right? The collectivity, the camaraderie, collective action. I think this looks and feels differently for all of us, and we probably all find it in different places. For me, the feeling of being an intergenerational political community is like nothing else I've ever experienced. It's the best thing in my life. And being in motion, in action with so many of you over the last year and a half, that feeling of being in the streets together, of taking up public space, of grieving as we chant, finally together, of being in unison, of sweating through our red and black t-shirts together, of feeling anchored by each other, of knowing that whatever we're making possible wouldn't have been possible had 1 or 15 people worked on it, that it actually took hundreds of us working in concert together to make it happen, and then to see that actually we are shifting the headlines, and we are shifting public opinion, and we are contributing to the fact that 2/3 of the American public now want an arms embargo. That is a power and a magic unlike anything else in the world. And so now, to talk to us about what they think we need to understand about organizing so we can build this mass movement we need so desperately to build, we want to welcome out Lara Kiswani of the Arab Resource and Organizing Center, Montega Simmons of the Movement for Black Lives, and Khalil Cole of Rising Majority. Oh, hey. Hi, friends. First of all, thank you all so much for the work you do leading our movements every day. Would you each just introduce yourselves briefly?
Hey y'all, my name is Khalil, and I'm the National Co-Director at the Rising Majority from East Oakland.
And Khalil, will you just say a little bit about what Rising Majority is?
Yeah, the Rising Majority is a multiracial, cross-sectoral coalition, anti-capitalist, anti-racist, fighting for a radical democracy, and JVP is a proud member.
Damn straight.
Yeah, y'all proud.
Oh, we're proud.
Good morning, family. My name is Montega Simmons. I use he, him pronouns. I am here from St. Louis, Missouri, where I was born and raised. I am here repping the Movement for Black Lives and as a proud leadership team member of the Rising Majority. M4BL, or the Movement for Black Lives, emerged first in 2014 out of uprisings, state violence against Black folks all across the country. And in that space, we found relationship and created more spaces for us to struggle, to build strategy, to build deeper, to build coordination together. And we're literally just coming into our 10th year. And in this moment, still wielding unyielding passion to pursue power and liberation for our people.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lara Kiswani, and I'm the Executive Director of the Arab Resource and Organizing Center based in the San Francisco Bay Area. I am a proud born and raised San Francisco Bay Area, but I am also a proud daughter of Palestinian refugees from Beit Iksa and Aqir, Palestine. And a proud member of the leadership team of the Rising Majority, most importantly.
Beautiful. So you all lead base building organizations, or have led or are leading a formation of base building organizations. And not only that, but you've all led these base building organizations in moments of massive atrocities and massive uprising. And that means that you've dealt with the struggles, not just of the daily struggles of base building, but when there's an explosion in the streets, how you capture that energy and channel it into organization and campaigns and movement for the long haul, which is so much more challenging. So you have a wealth of experience, and I would just love to hear from each of you, why do you believe in base building, in organization, which sometimes can get a bad rap, in campaigning, in going mass? Why do you believe in going mass? And can you pull out for us any of the core lessons that you want to share with us?
Beautiful. So I'm gonna get started. You actually said everything I was gonna say. So instead, I'm just gonna let the organizing that the Bay Area JVP chapter did on me last night come through. They would like a staff person, okay? Shout out to y'all. If y'all in here, I did finish my assignment. You know, organizing gets the goods, okay? Glass of wine, okay? All right, so first I wanna shout out my comrade, Fahad. Fahad is the director of an organization called DRUM, Desi's Rising Up and Moving, based in New York. And Fahad identifies as a base building supremacist. And so that is an identity I have absorbed. And I believe in base building because it is where we get to wield and harness people's power. And it allows us to build a container. You know, I appreciated what you brought in earlier. It allows us to build a container not just for us to build power, but for us to also build belonging. And the ruling class is organized, capital is organized, white supremacy is organized. And if we do not get organized, we will lose, and I'm tired of fucking losing. And so the panel earlier talked about the crisis that is existing in the world, and there's also an internal crisis in our movements. We have stopped talking to people. We are not who the average person gets their news from. It's not where the average person wades through contradictions or builds belonging alongside. So we have to go back to, you know, what we call bread and butter organizing skills. Building base, face-to-face organizing, political education at scale. And you know, we're not just building for the ones who think and act like us, but the ones who are tired working 2 jobs, have misinformation, and has let that misinformation really guide their decision making. That's our mandate. And I wanna invite us to push back against 2 trends that I'm noticing. And these trends are actually intervening on our path to power. And so the first is wanting to only organize with those who we share deep political alignment with. What this has translated into is organizations that are insular, because we are scared that if we open up our movements, our organizations, or our chapters to folks that are still on their political journey, it will not be a safe space that we have always longed for. And the gag is, we want that for everybody. And there's no way that everybody can have that if we don't actually create soft landing places for them in our movements. The second is growing a base and not wielding it powerfully. I love a social club, friends, okay? Like, they're very cute. They usually have matching jackets and shit. I'm gonna personally join one because I like motorcycles too. However, if you are not concerned with power, that's what you're building, right? And we just, we're not gonna win that way. Okay, so quick few lessons, and then I'm gonna pass it to Montega or Lada. I'm gonna pass it to Lada. Great. All right, few lessons. This debate, electoralism versus direct action versus alternatives, it's dead. Stop doing it, friends. It is politically backwards. We need it all. We need organizers, movement lawyers, union builders, cultural workers, policy folks, healers, digital strategists, and motherfuckers that just want to fuck it up because it's a Tuesday, okay? You all are welcome here. The second is that political education is not optional. It has to be a core and central piece of our work. And not just trainings for the activists or the paid organizers, but for the granny who dropped her kid off at the youth program, for the motherfucker who came in because they wanted the free plate, and for the kid who has never been asked what they dream and long for. We must be world builders. We have to offer a material, visionary alternative, not just what we're up against. Friends, there's only so long that our anti-capitalist stand will take us before actually saying, what is the economic structure of our dreams? And we must understand that our assignment to both build a sense of belonging across our movements and our future vision is essential to our body of work. Okay, last couple of things. So, absorption is a skill and our movements depend on it. Our movements have gotten very good at attracting people, but we have not succeeded in holding them. We need not only clear on-ramps, but clear roles. We need ritual. We need political education. We need culture that helps people move from interested to rooted, from audience to actor. And lastly, because, we heard the earlier panel, the shit was fucked up, okay? Emily drew it for us, it's in the hallway if you wanna be reminded of how fucked up shit is. We must understand that we have to measure our wins more than just a policy change or how many people we can turn out to an event, but how our formations have grown, how many people stepped into new roles, how many can now lead others. How much sharper have we gotten in our collective decision making? All of these are ways that we should be tracking and measuring how we grow. Last thing, you, beloveds, are not someone just with opinions. You're someone with power who can take decisive action in service of our vision. Organizing is about understanding it's your job to invite others into that.
That's a word. Thank you.
So I'm going to take a step back and answer the question from the vantage point of why the Palestine movement needs exactly what Carissa and Eleni, you pointed out earlier. Over the past year, we have built the largest Palestinian movement in US history. We have made inroads in every aspect of society, effectively mobilizing electeds, relentlessly bird-dogging some of them, supporting the largest anti-war network of organized labor in US history, winning ceasefire resolutions and divestment resolutions from municipalities to universities. We have seriously rocked the hegemony of Zionism, both in the United States and globally. And we have impacted business as usual in every city, every town, every hall of power. And as Noura reminded us earlier, the US political class is fractured at a level that we have never witnessed, and Zionist hegemony is in crisis. Today, each and every single one of you are helping to build this movement and honor the long-lasting US legacy of solidarity and internationalism that Dr. Robin D.G. Kelly reminded us today. A legacy that spans generations and spans borders and movements. And we have to reckon with the fact that we have done little to shift the material conditions of our people in Gaza, and done little to shift the political conditions of our people right here. We do not have the political power necessary to do so, and our task ahead is to build it. Movements need more than moments and mobilizations. They need infrastructure, community organizations, legal defense, political education, cultural work, and leadership development. A base provides the people power necessary to sustain and grow that infrastructure. Real wins, like ending once and for all US aid to Israel, real wins like protecting students and workers facing retaliation, require pressure campaigns that come from organized people, organized bases that can't be ignored. The more organized and connected we are, the harder it is for these institutions or the state to isolate, to criminalize, and erase our voices. A base creates the resilience necessary in the face of surveillance, censorship, and political targeting. Building a base means building the people power we need to fight for Palestinian freedom as part of the broader struggle for justice and against fascism. I want to remind everybody here that Palestinian freedom is necessary to defeat fascism. And I also want to remind us that ending fascism is necessary for Palestinian freedom. At this moment, we have to use what we have built even more forcefully, even more creatively, and thoughtfully, and leverage and mobilize true internationalist politics. We have to double down and continue to struggle for a free Palestine and to end US aid. That is a duty and responsibility not only for Jewish allies here in the US, but for every single person that resides in the United States. We also have to pour ourselves into the racial, economic, and environmental, gender liberation, pro-democracy struggles that poured into our movement. We must pour ourselves into the front of every anti-fascist struggle and continue to build on the international tradition of the Palestinian freedom movement by centering the work of building a global, radical, feminist democracy that centers social, economic, and political emancipation of all working people, and the protection of the world, the earth, and its people. So now is not the time to retreat. Now is the time to double down. We gotta keep learning. We gotta keep organizing. We gotta build coalitions, join coalitions, broaden coalitions. We gotta protect one another, and we gotta get trained if you need to get trained. We have to keep the pressure on, and we must remind ourselves that we are stronger together. Do not let them isolate you. Do not let them intimidate you. Although we may not have stopped the genocide, the years of work that went into building the largest Palestinian movement in US history was built locally, was built through bases and organizations and institutions and solidarity and cross-movement building. When we were able to stop the largest Israeli shipping line from docking its goods and unloading its goods at the port of Oakland, we didn't do that because we showed up to the port of Oakland. We did that because the dock workers themselves had a long history of standing against apartheid South Africa. They had a long history of standing with Palestine. And we built on that by going every single morning to talk to the dock workers, to educate them and explain to them why it was necessary to stop Israel from docking in Oakland. And we've won for 10 years and counting. When we stopped the largest SWAT training and militarization expo, bringing Israel to train local emergency responders in the Bay Area, we did so through 10 years of organizing. It did not happen overnight. These little wins may seem little, but in the longer haul of things, what we ended up doing is we took on and we have taken on and we have won when we take on Zionism directly, when we take on racists directly, when we take on fascism directly, and when we build the necessary bases that understand those struggles as connected and one, and see the long haul of our arc of struggle built on the masses before us, and know that when we do that work effectively, slowly, and the really unsexy hard work of the organizing and base building, that's what gets us to the other side.
Okay, friends. I have the unenviable task of following these two. Yeah, I'm inspired, and I'm gonna try and follow the thread in a way that if it makes sense, if I'm observing the crowd and the folks I've actually seen over the last few days or last 2 days, some of us are coming from organizing traditions, some of us are not. And recognizing that even in this space, you're seeing different threads on what organizing tradition means. And base building, when we talk about it, we do talk about it as a strategy to build power, but often, I'll say definitely in my tradition, like when we practice it, we don't practice just what we taught, we practice what we inherited. You heard Elena earlier like invoke the frame of understanding both wielding power as organized people and or organized money, sometimes versus. But no matter the lineage that we're coming from, all of us are actually recognizing that it's important for us to find the big we. M4BL's animating motion is what can we do together that we can't do alone? And sometimes, at least for some of us, it's not just for the sake of wielding power, but also for the sake of our very survival. And Black folks in this country long ago had to figure out both who was with me and which us was gonna help us get closer to the light, whether that was survival or liberation, and who wasn't. When we were first invited, I actually sat back into my own experience and thinking about how I first got activated. And like a lot of my comrades, it was in the face of state violence, not just locally, which we experience on a daily basis, but nationally. And for me, that wasn't in 2020. That wasn't in 2014. It was as a student in 1992, watching Rodney King experience something that I knew very well from the city I came from. Finding folks in that context that actually not only understood that experience, but actually had a will to act and to do more. Actually, it pushed me out of my box and pushed me into conversations I wouldn't have had otherwise. Now, even when I think about Black historical struggle, we've got a lot of legacies to lean on, everything from the Panthers to SNCC, to those untold stories. Any of you have ever heard of a Black organization called the Knights of Liberty? Some of you may have, some of you may not. Folks like Moses Dixon, the Knights and Daughters of Tabora, who actually trained upwards of 10,000 Black folks to actually seize their freedom before the Civil War happened. That was them finding their folk. They didn't call it base building. For them, it was literally figuring out the relationships and where they could have those conversations. But to do that, they also had to actually contextualize their own struggles. And in some cases, I saw the picture of Ella, and what I always think about with Ella is specifically this question she would pose is, who are your people? And that meant that for Ella, that was actually a way to understand your story, to contextualize who you are, to contextualize not only the relationships, but what's actually gonna animate you into action. And sometimes that we is found shoulder to shoulder, they're not necessarily gonna show up based on your IG invite, your Facebook. Sometimes the we that you're looking for, you're gonna have to confront them at your dinner table. Sometimes the we that we need you to call in to, you're gonna confront them in the kitchen sink, you're gonna confront them on your job. And in many cases, for many of you who got to this room, it's because you actually overcame a level of inertia from all those we's in front of you who had a very different story than the one we're inviting you into in this moment. As you're here in this place, part of what we're asking you to do is, yes, enjoy this moment, bask in this big we. But as we wrestle with this question of the now, we need you to go back and bring more. We need you to actually go home and lean into those hard conversations. What's always been true, and this is something I think we were agitated to backstage, is thinking about when you're trying to organize against the threat of a society that may actually depend on your subjugation to thrive, It requires understanding not only your now and finding your us, but being clear on how we're actually going to be able to work together. Sometimes some of these folks in here, yes, you got a lot of stuff in common with. But there's a lot of folks who actually have some difference. And guess what? This has always been true. It's been true for native tribes in this country in fighting back against settler colonialism. It was true for enslaved Africans who snatched up off their land and exploited, raped, and transported here. It's been true for survivors of Holocaust across the world. It's been true for the peoples of Palestine for more than 70 years in that country and in this one. And understanding both the scale of the threat requires us to actually lean in. And you can't hold your story. You're here for a reason that you have to take out. As big as this gathering is, to fight the threat that's on the horizon, we need 10 times this amount. Organizing it, don't get me wrong, I don't want to undermine. We need systems. We need everything to track. We need you to measure your engagement so you know if you actually got them bought in. But we need you to be in real relationship. And that means actually opening up in ways that, honestly, movement has been bad at for the last few years, especially the last 10. So I'll lean back so we can keep moving.
Thank you, Montega. What teachers? We need 10 times this amount. In a moment, we're gonna bring up JVP chapter leaders and keep having this conversation in that context. But I want to ask Lara you one more question before we do that, which is about the JVP context. We have countless contradictions and tensions inside all of organizing, but in JVP we have particular ones, and I would love to get your thoughts on them. And one of them is the question of, we have a core role here of intervening in the weaponization of anti-Semitism against Palestinians and the supremacy culture, the privileging of Jewish lives over Palestinian lives. How do we do that work without reifying the dynamic as we do the fight? So that's a core contradiction I know we all wrestle with all the time. And another key one is, and Lara, you and AROC have been so important in the leadership. Your leadership in the movement for Palestinian liberation is so important, and your leadership with JVP has been so important. And for those who don't know, there's a long history of AROC playing a role helping us sharpen our own political lines and our own what is our mandate. So we're so grateful for you all staying with us in that. And I want to ask, one of the things you're so clear on with us, Lara, is about how, and many Palestinian leaders is about how we need to be an effective counterweight against the ADL and AIPAC and their ilk, who just tear down the movement for Palestinian liberation at any turn, period. Now, in order to do that, we have to be 10 times more. But in order to be 10 times more, we have to go back to the communities that we come from. And in order to go back to the communities we come from, we have to speak in language they can understand and meet them there. And I think there's a lot of fear about that work precisely because we worry it's not accountable to a Palestinian-led movement. We're in that contradiction of existing between these worlds of a Palestinian-led Palestinian liberation movement and trying to stay in right relationship in this other world that is just a massive chasm apart. And in order to do it effectively, it means using language that doesn't always mimic our Palestinian comrades, and there's fear about that. How do we navigate that contradiction? So I would just love to hear from you any words you want to share on what you think JVP's most important role is and any thoughts on those core tensions.
Very easy question. I'll start by saying the principled struggle you describe between not only AROC but many Palestinian-led organizations in this room and beyond with JVP has to be mirrored in how we do our work with the community too, right? I have said this to you and a few others, but when you all reached out about this convening and called it the largest anti-Zionist gathering of Jews in the country, I was like, no, own it. You guys are the largest gathering of progressive Jews in the country. And why that distinction matters, it's not to water it down because you are anti-Zionist, But in order to be progressive, you have to be anti-Zionist. So we need to own that, and we need to actually own who and what JVP is. We cannot allow the ADLs, the JCRCs, the APACs, and others to front as civil rights organizations or progressive institutions. And the counterweight is this, right? It is the work you all are doing. I'll also say that right now, perhaps the only thing unifying the US progressive left is Palestine. Take that in for a moment. The US left is very fractured and very confused. But people are clear that Israel's a racist apartheid colonial state. They are clear that there's a genocide happening in Gaza, and they are clear that the reason it's happening is the US is bankrolling it. Now, there's work there for JVP to lean into, and that requires the organizing and the deep base building. And I would say, as an organizer, we have to understand what's the internal strategy and what's the external strategy. So I want to just put it out there. The Palestinian movement is in direct conversation with our anti-Zionist Jewish allies, including in particular JVP. And we have an understanding of the roles and lanes we all operate and walk within. That may not always be visible on the outside, but that's okay. Trust that the real necessary work of strategic partnership and principled struggle is happening and continues to happen. The work we have to do to bring in our bases, to build out the mass, requires us, including Arabs in the Swana and Muslim community, we are every single day faced with contradictions of how do we engage our base when we're not aligned on everything. But we know they're clear on Palestine. We know they're clear on war and militarism. We also know that they're working class people who were forced to migrate here because of US empire. But we may not align on the questions of transphobia and homophobia. Does that mean that we isolate every single Arab, Muslim, Swana community member because they're not where we want them to be on this issue? Absolutely not. Our work is to move them. And we have to trust the organizations that are rooted in the communities locally and nationally to move them. But we also have to join those organizations to help move those people. So I would say in this moment, JVP needs to get bigger. JVP needs to widen. But JVP also needs to deepen its work with the community, both at the same time, and you have a role to play. It doesn't mean you encapsulate or overwhelm the movement where then you invisibilize or erase Palestinian voices. There's a formula there. It's an experiment. We are living in unprecedented times. Let's lean into it and figure it out together. But now is the time for Jewish allies to own your privilege. For Jewish allies to also own the power you hold, and to wield that in ways that protect the most vulnerable. So when students are attacked, you're at the front lines of defense. And I'm not talking about 500 JVP members. We need thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in this country saying, if Mahmoud Khalil is attacked, we are all attacked. But there is a role for JVP to play. And there is also a deep understanding on our part, and probably everybody in this room, that the identity of Jewish people is being weaponized, that anti-Semitism is being weaponized, and you all are best positioned to confront that head on. You're not only best positioned, it's a duty and requirement. So we appreciate what JVP is doing, and I want to end by going back to what I said earlier. If the fight for Palestinian freedom is inherently a fight against fascism and one requires the other, then right now we need our allies as well to pour into all the movements for justice that are taking place in this country. As part of the Palestinian movement is part of the social fabric of the freedom struggles in the US. We need to demonstrate what true internationalism looks like. And that is what's going to continue to move people, build out our base, and hopefully get us to a place of victory and power.
Amen. Thank you so much, Lara, Montega, Khalil. Thank you for every word you shared, and thank you for your leadership day in and day out in our movements. And on that note, we want to welcome up our Director of Grassroots Organizing, Gemma and 3 wonderful chapter leaders to talk to us about mass movement in the JVP context.
Thank you. I love all of you. Thank you so much, Elena, Lara, Khalil, and Montega. You're already backstage, but those were so inspiring and resonant words, and I'm really excited for our panel to dig into what has that looked like in JVP? What is the base building work we've been doing, and what are the learnings we can pull from it as we look forward into the current conditions that we're in? So that's what we're here to do. I'm Gemma. It's such an honor to be here with all of you. My role is Director of Grassroots Organizing, which means I have the honor of supporting many of you to build locally rooted power around the country and also help weave that together into something that is aligned and in sync and can shift power at national scales as well. So that's my role. And before we move into this panel of these wonderful chapter leaders alongside me, I want to take a moment to shout out all of the chapter and pod leaders in the room. There's more, so. It's such difficult and crucial work, and so I'm gonna invite you, if you are or have been at any point in the last 25 years of JVP's history, someone who's held a leadership role in a JVP chapter or pod, could you stand up if you're able or raise your hand? It can be awkward, but I'm asking you to because we want to show you love. Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's been the honor of my life to support you all in your leadership as you all in turn develop more and more leaders doing exactly that work that we just heard about from Elena and the other panelists. So truly, thank you. Yes. As we talk about that, developing more and more leaders, everything we just heard about going mass, about scale, about organizing, I just want to name building an organizing culture, which is what we're talking about, is swimming upstream against the dominant ways of being that we are all taught to be, especially in the United States, especially in the year 2025 of advanced capitalism, of so much isolation, of a lot of conditions that shape us. And we've been talking about the need to shift from individualism to collectivity and how hard it is. And I think that when we are all in so much pain and so horrified by the atrocities happening everywhere, and particularly the genocide happening in Palestine, there's a really tempting fantasy that if we figure out the right idea, if we adopt the right persona, if we do something ourselves as an individual, we will each no longer be complicit. But it's a tempting fantasy, but it's not true, because we're all complicit until we actually succeed in building enough power to change the conditions, to end the genocide. That was what we were tasked with by Omar Barghouti last night. That's what we're here to do, is to let go of the idea that any of us will ever be perfect or right or good, and actually lean into each other and figure out how we build enough people power that these conditions cannot be sustained. That is our task. It's a hard one, and that's what we're here to do. Yeah. I understand organizing as like an embodied commitment. I think it's a sacred work. It's saying, even if sometimes our heads aren't there or like we don't have hope, it's saying, I'm gonna stay in motion. I'm gonna keep looking to other people. I'm not gonna turn away, and that's what we're here to do. We've also been naming that we've been in this period of mass absorption and mass mobilization for the last 1.5 years of fighting this genocide. And as we all know, the genocide is still ongoing. Rising fascism in the United States right now is making everything incredibly difficult. And it also means that people are still waking up. We still have an opportunity to reach new people. Now is not the moment to only turn inwards or only work with the people who we've already brought. That's important. And we have to keep looking out. We have to keep seeing who might find their way to us and how do we bring them in. And it can be hard. You might be frustrated they're not here already. But that's our role. That's what we have to move through, because shaming people for not being where we need them to be, it just will not get us there. Again, it's that we won't win until we win. So we need to bring every single person we can with us, and particularly at JVP, we just heard about the role we have organizing US Jewish communities. As organizers, we need to all be asking, where are US Jewish communities right now? What are the opportunities? Where are the places we can reach people? Listen, there's a lot of flailing right now in the US Jewish institutional world. There's some institutions that are revealing themselves, they've always been right-wing like the ADL, but they're mask off, they're full Trump, they're full everything. A lot of US Jews right now agree with us, agree that the genocide is horrible, are horrified as well by the abductions of Mahmoud Khalil and others, do not feel good about the way anti-Semitism is being misused by literal white supremacists in government. And we need to find them, we need to reach them, and we need to bring them in. That is our task. So many US Jews right now, I really believe, I'm seeing this, I'm hearing stories, are confused and are angry, and again, agree with us in many, many ways. They might not have the language, they might not have gotten the invitation that got them into this room, but they're on a path. And so I just want to invite us, as we move into talking more about what we've learned, that we also keep looking outwards, keep seeing who we bring in, and take that responsibility seriously. And we can think about it in layers. It's first, how many people can we get to hear our message, can we reach? We'll hear more tomorrow about some of the narrative strategy behind mobilizations and others work we've been doing. And as we've planned actions, we've had an eye towards how can these bring more people in? How can they be done in a way that helps people who may not have all the language or be accustomed to social movements see themselves in the world they want to be part of in them? That's part of what those are doing. And then if people see or hear about us or the work we're doing, how do we move them into action? How do we get them to take that first step? How do we get them into the streets or to make a call to a member of Congress, whatever it might be? And then how many of those people can we get to find belonging and to become part of organizing, to find a role, to figure out what they have to offer, to learn political education, to get skilled up? And that's a lot of what we're about to dive into, is that really crucial and often little seen day-to-day work of organizing that is helping people find a home, helping people find a role, and committing to developing each other's leadership, because we don't just need many, many people, we need people with skills and the ability to work together to keep advancing our fight. I'm just going to say again, that's the task ahead of us. How do we reach as many people as possible, specifically fellow Jews? How do we move as many of those people as possible into action? How do we move those people into organizing? And this is all within many, many other organizations doing the same with their communities, but that's our role within it. We don't know everything that will work, but we know we need people power. And so with that, I'm so grateful and excited to talk with this set of leaders. Mosley Jackson from JVP Western Washington, student chapter in Bellingham. Ezra from JVP Philadelphia. And Lorena from JVP Triangle in Durham, North Carolina. Again, we'll be surfacing insights and learnings about what those big ideas and big tasks we've been talking about look like in practice in the day-to-day organizing of JVP chapters over the past 1.5 years. So Mosley Jackson, we'll start with you. You were part of starting a new JVP chapter on campus last spring, which was then part of the historic encampments by the student movement. Could you share more about that moment of, yes, clap for that. Absolutely. Can you share more about that moment of mass mobilization? What did you see in terms of new people and specifically Jewish students taking action?
Thank you so much, Gemma, and I just want to say it is truly such an honor to be in this room and to be on this stage, which throughout the weekend we are sharing with truly some of my heroes. So it really is an honor, and also just an immense, immense thank you to all of the JVP staff, Gemma included, who have poured so much into developing and mentoring me as an organizer, and so just such a massive, massive thank you to all of you. Yes. To me, student organizing in so many ways is a microcosm of what we see all across the movement. However, we are operating under very specific conditions. And so we are on a very short timeline. We have incredibly high turnover rates with graduating students. And we're one of the primary sites of the ideological reproduction of Zionism. Mm-hmm. And so, to me, when we take the time to pay attention to the student movements and the tensions and the frustrations and the challenges that are coming up there, it highlights the challenges that are coming up all across our movement spaces. And at the same time, it highlights some of the most inspiring and transformative things that we see in our movement spaces. Seeing people step up into responsibility, step up to take on risks, all of these amazing things. And so for myself and our chapter, it didn't start as a mass mobilization. When I first transferred to Western Washington University last winter, there really was no visible Jewish anti-Zionist presence. And that was being taken advantage of by our administration to use to reinforce their horrific repression of our Palestinian, Arab, and Arab American student organizers and faculty in the name of so-called Jewish safety. And so, shortly before I arrived, two of my co-founders were at a student protest, and one of them was holding a sign that said Jew for Palestine. And the other one walked up to them, introduced themselves, and that one moment of visibility was all it took to spark this conversation of starting a JVP chapter on our campus. And so shortly after that, I was brought in, and a few other of us, and the 5 of us started having this conversation of what would it really take to start this chapter and what does it mean? And for us, that meant really intimately grappling with our own identities, our own rage, and our grief at the genocide being carried out in our name. And it also meant taking on this huge responsibility and this mandate that we are required to do of standing in the way of these false accusations of anti-Semitism that are being done in our name. And being this counterweight to Zionism that Elena and so many other folks on this stage are speaking to. And the second thing is building a political home for young Jewish people and the importance of that. And I, like so many of us, have always had a very complicated relationship with my Jewish identity. And over the last few years, what I've really come to realize, and then again after the first few meetings of our new chapter, is how common that experience is. And how in so many ways, that actually is a very core Jewish experience in the world that we live in today. And that's especially true for young Jewish people who are for the very first time learning what it means for them to be Jewish out in the world, away from their families and away from their home communities. And so one of the most inspiring and amazing parts of starting this chapter was seeing these young Jewish people come together, including myself, and having this opportunity to learn together what it meant to be Jewish. And what it meant to be Jewish within a shared commitment to collective liberation and Palestinian liberation. So as the year went on, we are juggling our own internal base building. We are launching a divestment campaign. We are building personal relationships and relationships of solidarity across our campus. And we didn't see what I would have hoped to be our Jewish membership. But through that coalition, we were able to create the critical mass that we needed to launch our encampment. And then, once we get to the encampment, I look around and it feels like every single time I turn around, I'm meeting a new Jewish person I have never seen before. And so, technology, we love it. For me, that really demonstrated the way in which organizing and mobilizing constantly work together to bring people in and to keep them with us.
I love all of that, so does everyone, obviously. And that was such a beautiful illustration of what the cycle Elena showed us in action. And I'm curious to hear more about your reflections since that moment, about what did you learn, or what were the challenges and opportunities of sustaining that people power over time?
I've learned that it's really hard. I'm just kidding, but only slightly. No, but I want to be really honest about the fact that this is something that we have really, really struggled with. And I think it's important to be honest about that, because through that honesty, we're able to come together and solve those problems rather than pretending that everything is fine. And so this is an incredibly difficult task that we have, to find this delicate balance between meeting the ongoing moment of urgency and building durable power and structures to build that power. And so I think as organizers, we also have this dual responsibility to bring people in and skill them up, and also to not only teach them the skills, but teach them how to engage in organizing in a way that turns them into, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, that turns them into lifelong organizers for Palestinian liberation. And so the question to me is, how do we create spaces where it is okay to make mistakes when the stakes are so incredibly high, when the stakes are the lives and the dignity of our beloved Palestinian people? And so over the last year and a half, there have been dozens of new student chapters and dozens of new local chapters and pods across the country. And yeah, I think that deserves a round of applause. And so now we're all in this moment where we have to learn together how to get through this cycle of building power and using power to move forward our goals. And to me, it feels incredibly important to recognize that we are the latest iteration of an incredibly long ancestry of resistance. And I feel my most Jewish self when I am speaking out for liberation. And it is also our responsibility to be generous with our knowledge and to continue that legacy and that tradition of passing on that knowledge to each other now, this weekend, and also to the next generation.
Thank you so much for all that wisdom, Mosley Jackson, and thank you to all the students who are here, all the work you do.
Maybe it's me.
With those challenges and questions of what does it take to keep the people power over time, it takes a lot of structure. It takes a lot of things that there's workshops on, by the way, so take a look at those this weekend of sharing the knowledge with each other. And also, Ezra, I know in JVP Philadelphia, over the past decade, you all have been doing so much work to figure out how to bring in new people effectively, try things out, learn from them, and then also been doing this absorption of the last year and a half. So I would just love to hear more of your reflections and learnings from the work you've done.
Okay, here we go. Okay, well, first of all, thank you, Gemma, and thank you, Mosley. And it's like, And hi, everybody. I'm going to try not to keep touching my microphone, and I'm going to talk about work that has been built and led in JVP Philly by many people who are in the room today, and many that are with us in spirit. So first, I just want to send love and appreciation to everyone who's really worked so hard to help others get active and build leadership together in our chapter and in all of your chapters. But for Philly, you can recognize us by our cool gritty pins. I first became a local chapter member in 2013 after I attended a regional leadership development institute and then a national member meeting. And I remember the feeling of being personally, directly invited to specific roles and activities. And that really, really mattered as I made a home increasingly made a home in the local and national organization. And scaling out to the local and national together, one other piece I want to call out in our big, sort of movement building, scaling out structure is the JVP's model of grassroots fundraising and membership drives, which are so directly connected to the organizing model and connects what it's going to take to sustain JVP as an organization and what it takes to build and broaden JVP's base and power as a movement. So a lot of my fundraising superheroes are in the room today, so I just wanted to shout that out. Okay, so Philly's JVP chapter existed long before I got involved, and there have been many cycles of high activity and some quieter times, so we have tried a lot. And through those experiments, the big goal is that anyone who's ready to align with our mission can find a way in, can find a meaningful role, can get active, and can move into increasing leadership. So in October 2023, we had about 700 people on our contact list, and we really knew a lot about them from so many years of political and cultural work together. And there were so many people on the list who cared about JVP and who had been involved over the years in various ways, but they might say something like, I'm more focused on another issue right now, or stuff in my life doesn't really support me coming to meetings regularly, but call me if you need me. So we, the chapter and leaders started calling down this list of known and trusted people and saying, okay, we need you, are you in? And with only a couple of days to make those calls, we were able to bring over 200 people to DC for that first action at the Rotunda, inside and outside. And for that first Ceasefire Now protest. And then we kept calling people and asking, and people kept showing up. And JVP Philly made our voices heard with really bold and beautiful actions and a great documentation and media team. And many new people learned about us and were moved to join us. So that's part of the how we scale out. And then by the end of 2023, our contact list had already doubled with people reaching out to get involved. And these messages were so moving. Hundreds of people were saying to us, like, not in my name, I'm raging, I'm grieving, what can I do? I need to do something. Or they're saying, you're speaking for me, how do I join? And it was completely inspiring. And it was also a really big challenge that I imagine many of us in the room can relate to, where we had been in a quieter cycle in 2023, and we were not prepared for the pace of onboarding that this moment needed and required. So, of course, we were adding people to our public email list to get event updates, but at first we were kind of frozen about how else to respond. And I want to stress that a lot of what we've ended up doing are really basic organizing steps, but there have been a lot of lessons learned about what works for us to do them at this escalated scale. So first, shout out to the people that joined together to relaunch a membership committee. We got a team together who just started calling and texting down that list of people who had been reaching out and offering a one-on-one conversation to help them plug in. And within a few months, we had reached out to about 500 people and had about 150 conversations. Yeah. And as our broader organizing also quickly scaled up to meet the moment, we built what we called a switchboard to track all of the different emerging roles and committees and working groups and other ways people could plug in or tap resources that might be a good match for them. And with so much moving so quickly, I think it was helpful to make this full ecosystem more visible to the different parts of the ecosystem too. And we also heard from a lot of people like near Philly, not in Philly, but like surrounding areas. And so we started a switchboard section for who we could connect people to, like to the nearby location leaders and organizers. And that was also really helpful. So, but as we called down this ever-growing new contact list, there were so many missed connections and really no way to keep up. So the membership committee regrouped and switched to offering regular new member orientations and offering a one-on-one as a follow-up step. That's something that like a lot of chapters just already baseline do, but for us it was like, oh, we need to not just like call everybody that emails us and says, what can I do, but like we need to actually reinitiate this structure, this basic structure to meet this moment. The membership committees also had a bunch of other roles and subcommittees and elements, and that includes co-organizing general member meetings that are now roughly quarterly, and those are spaces that many of our chapters and groups have where members can meet across the various parts of the ecosystem, the various committees and subcommittees, and get to know each other, and new people can come in and get to know people, get more connected. There's a vetting group that helps new people join in parts of the organizing that require more trust for collaboration. And we also have this base building subcommittee, which among other things has done some evaluation and planning around our chapter's specific layers of the organizing onion. So like in JVP Philly, how do people move from supporting to participating to organizing to leading? And we prioritize next steps for what our chapter can do. And at all of the onion levels, we really keep coming back to this thing that I know helped me make a political home at JVP, which is really like learning who people are, what skills and interests we bring to the group, and making personal invitations. There's like a lot of like, we need people to help make art, who can come, right? That's like one way that we reach people, and sometimes people show up that you don't know are gonna show up, and that's important and exciting, but the personal, like, I thought of you, would you do this? Has been, is just so core, like at every step in that process. So, I want to share 3 big pieces of building at scale that haven't just been membership committee, but are chapter-wide. One is that we've oriented towards having as many roles as possible have a buddy. And this is important, as a way for people with more practice to support newer people in skill building or stepping into more leadership. But it's also crucial because just sometimes, like people get sick, people can't show up for some reason, people need a break. And so having, there be like somebody else who knows how this role works is really important. Again, this is like kind of basic organizing, but instituting it has been really important for like building out at scale for us. 2 is that we've had some really big training opportunities, and those are pretty key for making different parts of the work more visible and transferable to a lot of new leaders. And then the 3rd is that after so many times of calling down these long lists and for us it was like making new teams every time we took an action together, like just excruciating level of work that people put in like over and over and over again. We have recently transitioned, major love to all the people that put in so much work to do this transition, to a new affinity group model. And so for our chapter, this is a major step to be able to build at scale. It enables members to have a smaller crew we're building relationships and mutual accountability with, and it enables much easier mass mobilization for turnout moments. A lot of chapters like started with an affinity group model, but for us it was important to be like, we already have this big list of people who've been showing up all the time. Like, it can't just be like you and your friends are an affinity group. It needs to be like, there needs to be a way in for people that aren't just like in a social group that can like co-organize, it has to be broader than that. And I think this affinity group model and the way that we're doing it now, it really captures that. It's not like me and my 4 friends, me and my 10 friends, whatever. Like it is like a broader, how do we build, lasting and new relationships too with each other. Our current goal is to get as many members as possible into affinity groups or like chapter committees, but basically that we all have at least one home within the bigger chapter ecosystem. And so like now in April 2025, our local contact list is about 2,000 people, you know, and yeah, like thank you, go organizers, right? And so I just want to say like I'm really wowed by the amount of completely volunteer energy and care that goes into building all of these structures, opportunities for action, engagement, and deepening our organizing together. So, you know, thank you to everybody who's doing that work. Thank you, Gemma, and everybody for having me on the panel. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ezra, for sharing all of the beautiful nitty-gritty work that's like just a glimpse of the enormous labor of love and commitment that our chapters are taking on every day and that you all have done specifically in Philadelphia. With that, I'm so excited to hear more from you, Lorena, about the work the JVP Triangle is doing in Durham and surrounding areas in North Carolina, where you all have a lot of rigorous systems for base building and leadership development, and you've also spoken to me about how much community culture and systems of caring for each other are built into that and what that makes possible. So would love to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah, thank you all. Okay, just so that I can get through this, is that the real time?
We're gonna massage it.
Great, okay. All right, so what I have been hearing, right, is that there are these pieces around how do we find each other, how do we connect folks into meaningful roles and work, and for me, the next question really that follows from that is frequently, right, how do we keep up with this sustained action, right? This is grief work. It is exhausting. It also is joyful, right? But it is very hard work. And I think in the same way that Moj was talking about, like, we have to be honest that, like, we aren't walking through a park together. That's not this work. And so I'm going to guess in this range of experiences in the room, right? Everyone at some point, you could look back in your memories and you'd be like, oh, I was once part of a group that you are no longer a part of, right? Depending on your age, you might have multiple groups. Maybe you moved. Maybe that group lost cohesion. Maybe there was conflict that just like could not be repaired, right? Maybe exhaustion just took its toll. But I want you to also take a moment right now to think about the fact that you are here, and really importantly, you're still here. Do you actually know how that happened? This is a time, if you have pen and paper, you can write down your answer. Because how you've been able to stay in organizing isn't accidental. It doesn't just happen like magic. It can be intentional and it can be structural. And so I can genuinely say that I am here because of the folks in my chapter. Yes! From the deep love and care that I have received from them, I have been in organizing spaces since I was a student, almost 20 years ago now, and that has not always been like this. It is here in this chapter that I have found my people, and that is hard to do. And so I think frequently when we talk about base building and mass organizing, I hear folks talk about like, but what about rigor? What about capacity? And we've got really real tensions right there, right? Around, do we have enough time for anything when we are constantly putting out crisis, right? We are responding to things as they appear, and that work is really important. But that is not the only work. I am so deeply grateful for the folks who have really affirmed for me that it is possible to do this kind of organizing, and frankly, only possible to do this kind of organizing with care. And I don't mean in the like feeling sense, I really mean in the bell hooks, like love is an action sense, right? Community care is core structures. In our chapter, we use a working group structure, and one of our core working groups is community care. This is not siloed work. This does not mean that those are the folks you go to when you have a need. These are the folks who help keep the whole chapter planning and following through with how do we show up to support each other. That can be at chapter meetings. That means that they're the folks that bring the sticky notes, but it means that we open our chapter meetings with everyone gets a sticky note. You can write down a need that you have. It goes up on the board midway through the chapter meeting. It means at the end of the chapter meeting, everyone goes up to the board, and if you can meet that need, you take it. This is not about reinventing like incredible new tech. These are a long lineage of old school tactics that work, right? It's still going to organizing fairs. It's still one-on-one convos. It's still phone banking, right? Old school phone trees, they matter. And when someone says, when I go, hey, can you make it to the chapter meeting next month? And they go, no. Please don't stop the conversation there. The script for that can be, that's really cool. Do you have any questions or concerns that I can bring back to the room and bring back to you? Because your voice still matters. Like, we need you in the room in some way. Do you have any other needs I can meet? And this can feel really strange, right? To ask folks, like, you're just asking them what they need. What if you can't meet it? That's gonna happen, right? We come from many different types of lived experiences. We are fighting many different forms of oppression and repression, right? And that means that folks have real material needs right now. But that can mean that you have a one-on-one conversation at an organizing fair and someone shows up to a chapter meeting. And then when I phone bank them and I go, hey, I know you can't make the meeting, but is there anything else I can help you with? At that point, they knew me well enough to go, actually, I'm dealing with a chronic illness right now, and I could really use some help moving physical boxes because I can't. So, no problem. Our structure in our chapters, we also have like a form for folks to be able to like directly put in their needs and also to put in their offerings, right? This is about connecting folks, but that person got their needs met. In the next month, they showed up to a working group meeting, and they've been coming consistently since. This is not to say that this is transactional work, right? It is not, I will take care of you if you also make sure to hang up the banner, right? This is reciprocal work. We cannot spend our folks, right? We can't burn through each other. It is not, we can't keep building folks if we're just going to churn through us. And it's really important that we take time to actually remember that it is not just organizing that's happening, it is people who are organizing. We are humans in this. And it is important that we care about human needs, that we get to recognize that we also have them. So you can't only take the role where you only ask others for their needs. You actually also have to be like, I know I said I could do this. Actually, this new thing happened. I need to take 2 weeks and step back. And in our chapter, I have yet to be in a space where that isn't like, amazing, thank you so much. Do you need any help in what you are stepping back for? And it shouldn't be radical, but can be. And it's really important that we give space to be in dialogue with each other, in asking what we need, and trying to offer what we can. That does not mean that I, personally, will be able to meet each need, right? But this is a way that we build capacity because I can't meet every need. My grandfather would joke that, like, I shouldn't be making the meals for the meal trains. But I do have a stove that I can offer, right? And sometimes a car that I can transport the meal train on. And it's really important that in that, together we can get our needs met. It's also a way of coalition building. So I may not have the resource to be able to meet someone's need, but I can make the connection with someone else in our community. And our community orgs get to know each other through those works too. It is really important that we are taking time to stay connected and really see each other as humans doing this work. We just really can't afford not to. We don't yet have enough people power to not give a fuck about the people that are in the room. And it is about helping them get back into the room and keep us in the room. Okay, my last final thought is just that our obligation to working towards liberation really is not just about liberation out there, that it really is work that we do in here, that it is a daily practice, that I know that I'm not enough. I'm not gonna be able to do it, right? I don't have the right answers. I haven't done enough learning. I'm just not there yet. But I do genuinely know that we will be enough. That like together we can actually do it. And that is worth thinking through. How do you structurally put in ways to remember and take time that care work is also part of organizing, that we need each other in the room, and that it's not wasted time.
Thank you so much for all that wisdom. And I really I think sometimes there's a false dichotomy actually that people do between rigor and base building and checking in on each other and caring for each other. And actually what I kept hearing in those examples is how there's ways we can care for each other and learn to ask each other for what we need and where we can meet. We won't always be able to meet all of them, that actually are what we need to bring way, way more people in. So thank you for helping us show a way through that kind of false dichotomy. All right, well, thank you all so much, all three of you, for sharing those really powerful insights. Yes. It's just a glimpse into the enormous amount of organizing work happening daily in JVP chapters. These practices of personal invitation, of creating structure, of supporting people to take on roles, of caring for one another, are at the core of organizing, of what it means to build durable people power, and they're not the most visible or obvious part. I'm hearing throughout your offerings that commitment to being in it together, and then also expanding what that together means, who gets to be part of the together. And that's the commitment our movements need. The stakes are too high for us not to. So that's also the invitation we're offering to everyone here. How can we each deepen our commitment to growing the movement for justice, and how can we put that commitment into practice? It will look different for each of us. We have different roles and different skills, and that's actually a good thing. But I really believe it takes each of us taking that on. So thank you so much. You're wondering why we're still sitting here. To close us out with the poem, I'm thrilled to introduce beloved JVP NYC leader Esther Farmer.
This is called The Low Road by Marge Piercy. What can they do to you? Whatever they want. They can set you up. They can bust you. They can break your fingers. They can burn your brain with electricity, blur you with drugs till you can't walk, can't remember. They can take your child, wall up your lover. They can do anything you can't stop them from doing. But how can you stop them? Alone, you can fight, you can refuse, you can take what revenge you can, but they roll over you. But two people fighting back to back can cut through a mob. A snake dancing file can break a cordon. An army can meet an army. Two people can keep each other sane, can give support, conviction, love, massage, hope, sex. Three people are a delegation, a committee, a wedge. With four, you can play bridge and start an organization. With six, you can rent a whole house, eat pie for dinner with no seconds, and hold a fundraising party. A dozen make a demonstration, 100 fill a hall, 1,000 have solidarity and your own newsletter, 10,000 power and your own paper, 100,000 your own media. It goes on one at a time. It starts when you care to act. It starts when you do it again and they said no. It starts when you say we and know who you mean. And each day you mean one more. Thanks.